Alrighty guys, so we're back. We're doing a playground for the word games, and this is what you need to know before you jump into the playground. So just another refresher. Remember, variables and constants are just boxes, containers, folders, whatever kind of comparison you want to use there, that we assign or we give a name, an identifier, and then we assign a value to. Major difference between constant and variable is that the constant, once declared, cannot change throughout the program. It is constant, so we can't change the value. The data type we'll be working with today is string, so that is text. So we put Tyler went to the store in quotes, that is a string. And then furthermore, what we need to know how to do today is string manipulation. There's concatenation, which is basically we add strings together by basically doing new string variable equals variable string 1 plus either a new string that we've already created, such as quotes and ending the questions, or we could do new string equals string 1 plus string 2 is also what we could do there. Interpolation of the string. String interpolation basically allows us to print a statement using quotes, and then instead of printing out every single type of variation of the string we could have, we can just simply use an escape character, the backslash, and then parentheses the variable name, and it will just print out what that variable is holding if it's a string. And so that makes it super easy. And the last thing we need to know how to do is appending, adding a string to the end of another string, such as string 1 plus sign equals string 2, which will basically just add string 2 to the end of string 1, or such as string 1 equals, or sorry, that's supposed to be plus equals, and then some exclamation marks inside of quotes, which will add exclamation marks to the end of string 1. So that's what we need to know how to do. So go ahead and pause and go ahead and just review any of those terms that you need to, and then basically come back and we'll get the playground started. Alrighty guys, so we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pause the screen real quick. So word games. In this playground, you'll use your knowledge of values, constants, and strings to create fun word games to play with classmates. Basically, we're gonna have to use our knowledge of constants, values, and strings, and we're gonna kind of create some like Mad Libs if you've ever played that, or we can do like questions and answers. We can do jokes. Basically, we're gonna take like strings and just basically create variables that will replace certain words in the string with to create a funny sentence. So that's basically what we're doing today. Feel free to pause at any time during the video and do your own thing. Obviously, don't just copy what I'm doing, but I'm gonna walk you through what I'm doing and what I'm choosing to do and kind of how I'm setting up stuff. Hopefully that helps you as you navigate the playground, and then I'll also give out any insight that I think is currently relevant that might help better explain something or anything like that. That's what these playgrounds are meant to do, is apply what you're currently learning, and then also help basically keep it in your memory and find new ways of connecting what you're learning to what you can actually do with it. So without further ado, let's jump in. Alrighty, so we're gonna jump to the next page. So coding hints. So this is gonna basically just tell us like you're gonna want to basically set yourself up for success. You're gonna want to clearly use comments to figure out how you're typing stuff. separate your work, separate your variables with the actual strings so that you can kind of navigate your workspace. But yeah, that's pretty much all that is. But yeah, we're just gonna jump in here to the first game I created, and I kind of tried to do each game a little different, or at least the first three, using a different method of string manipulation. So game one, I told myself I would create it using string interpolation. Now, real quick, I'm just as a common habit, I comment my name, the date, and the project name, and that's just a good habit to get into as you go further into your your education, as you turn in more assignments, and it's just a good all around rule of thumb to follow. Also, I grabbed these like the string, like the basis of the strings off the internet, using just basically like famous quotes and stuff and funny jokes. So you feel free to do that too. Just make sure somewhere in the program you're citing your sources. Just put a comment and say where you got the quote from. I do have a note page which will pop up that displays where I got the strings and stuff from. So here I am just setting up my workspace. I've created a comment with variables, practice string, actual string, and then the print. And that's just helped me organize my thoughts as I develop the game. So right now I'm thinking like the best way to do this would probably grab the string that I want to interpolate, and I think at this point I'm trying to go to the internet and I realize I'm not connected, so we'll do a quick transition here and then I'll be back with quotes. So I copied and pasted the string that I wanted to work with, and it's in a comment so that in case I forget, the program can't read it. Now basically I'm taking words and I'm replacing them with an identifier that I can see, like, okay, this word's going to be an adjective. I'm going to name it adjective 1, and that will correspond with the variable I create. Now I'm going to go try to find the next word that I want to replace. So I'm going to grab rising, and so that's a verb that ends in ing, and I'm going to specify that so the user won't be confused. Now, I do take my time with each of these programs. I'm very deliberate in trying to work out my thoughts, and I want to make sure it was nice and slow for you guys. If you guys wanted to see how I did it and you want to just follow along, that's completely fine. If you want to speed ahead and just kind of skim through what I'm doing, that's totally fine too. Whatever works best for you. Remember, you can always skip ahead and come back if you need to see what I did. But right now I'm just basically choosing the words of the string that I want to have the user replace, and then setting up variables that match them. Now, one thing I'd like to point out right now is I did a variable that says verb end in ing1. Now that's a fine name for a constant. But what I realized after is that I didn't even need to name it that. What I could have done is kept the ing in the actual string and then just put the verb as verb 1 and then left a comment or some kind of identifier to the user that they need to choose a verb that ends in ing. But then or they could just choose a verb, and the string itself, as it would be formatted, it would just still keep the ing, so they could just put a verb in there and it would make it work. So that's just so many things or so many different ways to do things in coding. You can have two people with a completely different approach arrive at the same result. So that's what's really cool about coding. Now you notice I'm putting placeholder text, or basically placeholder strings, for each variable, or actually in this case, since we're using let, it's a constant. But I'm doing that just because, one, it is suggested I do that, and then also two, I hate getting errors when I know they're not actually going to be errors anyway. So it just helps keep things clean, and you don't want false, obviously there's still errors, but you don't want it to be notifying you that, hey, something's missing when you just haven't filled it out yet. It's nice just to put a placeholder real quick, and so that you don't have to worry about it. Now, what I'm doing right here is I'm entering a comment, and I'm just saying, please enter an adjective, a verb ending in ing, and another verb ending in ing, and then I'll say last just a verb. Now I'm just trying to organize my thoughts at this point and trying to make the connections of what's going where, how is it going to actually finally turn out. So at this point, I'm kind of just done with the practice string. I don't really need it anymore. But what I do need is I need to copy and paste it into a print statement. So I started creating a string variable. Well, I'll let a constant for the string, and then realized that I wouldn't be able to actually manipulate the string after declaring it a constant. But then I realized that we're doing interpolation, so I don't need a variable anyway. But it's always better to be prepared than not prepared. So I just went ahead and deleted the comment that separated it out as the actual string, because I wasn't going to use that. So now I have a print statement. Now I got to go back and fix, because it looks like it inserted quotes plus the original quotes I had copied. Now I erased by Nelson Mandela because I thought it'd be weird to keep that in there as he said it, because it's a Mad Lib, but the example actually in the playground does have it keep the person who said it, so just go ahead and keep it just in case for citing reasons. But yeah, so basically I copied and pasted this string, and now I'm replacing all the words that I had indicated that were getting replaced by doing a backslash, parentheses, and then the variable name that's replacing. And that what that is doing is it's signifying to the program or the computer that, hey, the escape character, which is the backslash, is basically signifying, hey, what comes after this needs to be treated differently. And in this case, it's going to insert what those variables are holding into the text. So it printed out, but if you notice, I haven't actually changed the variables at this point, so it's just the placeholder text, is printing at this moment. So I'm going to go back, and at this point it would be like the person that you're having play the game to choose what's going on. But yeah, I chose fastest. What did I choose for my verb? I think I did falling, or no, swimming. Yeah, swimming. Let's see, another. Eating, yeah. I was getting really original. And then that prints out the fastest glory in living lies not in never eating, but in swimming every time we eat, which is a fantastic way or fantastic line to live by. I don't even know what it means. So we're going to move on to the next game. So game 2, I'm just doing what I normally do. I'm going to put my name, my last name, the date, and this is my note document. The top link is where I got the quotes from, and the bottom link highlighted in yellow is where I got the jokes from. But yeah, so basically this one I'm going to do by basically string concatenation. I have such a hard time saying that word. But basically we're going to manipulate the string not by inserting or interpolation, but by basically adding different strings together. So I'm going to do the same thing I did I'm going to separate out my variables. I'm going to have the setup as the original text, and then that way I can set up which words I want replaced. And this is where I'm notating that I'm going to complete this one using string concatenation or concatenation. And I think it's taking me this long because I always forget how to spell this. Now I'm going to declare my variables. And this, it's a constant. Sorry. Remember, constants you cannot change once they've been declared further on in the program. So like if I wanted to change what noun 1 equals, I can't do that. I can't just basically say noun 1 equals this now. It wouldn't let me. Now I try to keep my naming, the way I identify variables and constants very simple. I want it not to be a very long, hard to read name. I want it to be nice and simple. I also want it to do something, right? So noun 1 tells me this is the first noun in the Mad Lib. I'm not going to name it like word 1. I want it to be a little bit more descriptive than just like word 1, word 2, right? Now, what I decided to do is put comments at the end of each constant, basically adding conditions or suggestions of how they what they should put there. So like for example, noun 1 equals placeholder for now, but after the comment it's like, hey, it should be an animal noun or a noun of an animal, and then like the verb, it should be ending in ing. At this point, I'm just trying to decide exactly what I want it to be replaced as. And then also I'm trying to basically translate from my brain what I want the user to understand. So it's not always like, you know, I could say something you would wear, but maybe that wouldn't make sense to somebody else, or in this context it wouldn't. So you always want to try to take the extra second to see if you can make a more general or layman way of saying what you want to say, because our brains are going like, you know, a mile or a million miles a minute, and sometimes we don't think of adding context to what we're saying to make it clear. So it's always good to try to be as precise and clear as possible so the user doesn't get confused. So what I've done so far is I've created variables that are replacing words in the string, and now I'm splitting up the string by basically taking the string before the word that's getting replaced and then taking the string after the word's getting replaced and breaking it up that way. And then that way we can do concatenation by just simply adding the strings together plus the words or the variables that are replacing the original words. Now we're gonna run into a problem here of formatting, and I won't give it away yet, but you'll see here in a second. Again, I'm just using comments to help organize my thoughts and make it, one, easy for me to read and easy for me to basically know what to do next, but also easy for the user to kind of understand where I was going with this. Remember, comments always help us organize our thoughts, but it's also crucial for any fellow programmer that's going to be working on the same code to understand what we were trying to do at that point. So this is where we're going to get into the string concatenation. I'm going to learn how to say that one of these days. But basically, how we're to combine the strings, first we need to, well, technically we could do a print statement and then just do print string 1 plus verb 1 plus noun 1. But what I wanted to do is I want to make the print statement simple. So I wanted to basically do a new variable called new string, and I'm going to add all the strings plus the verb or the word replacements to create a brand new string. And then when I do print, all I have to do is do print parentheses new string, and it should print it out just fine. Now also, I don't know if you, or no, we have covered this actually. And in what's an IDE again, guys? Give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. An IDE is an integrated developer environment. Now, what is the difference between that and like saying like coding on a notepad? You can do that on a notepad, but you're not going to have any checks from the you're not going to have like warnings or anything about potential errors. You're not going to have autofill. So that's what an integrated developer environment does, is it helps you, one, fix easy errors before you actually even build the code, and two, it also is like, hey, you've already declared this variable, is this what you mean when you start typing it? So it's super nice, super helpful. So see, I just put print new string. Now it's printed it in the console there at the bottom, but now it's just a jumble of mess, and I got to figure out what did I do wrong. And what I did wrong is I forgot that just because I'm adding the strings together, the computer doesn't know to add spaces between words. It doesn't care. It just is literally like, hey, it's like, hey, basically you wanted me to add these strings together, so I'm going to do them right next to each other. It doesn't think about spaces or anything like that. So we're going to do that. So basically what I did is I added spaces to the actual strings that the variables for the word replacements are holding. And I also thought about doing a new variable for space, but then that would be kind of redundant. I'd get double spaces. So instead, I'm just going to do plus quotes on each side. Now, if some of you guys are noticing there's something wrong with what I'm doing currently, it's not going to work like I think it's going to work. And hopefully you guys can figure it out by now. Now, copy and paste is super helpful, but also remember, if you screwed up on one line and you copied and pasted that line throughout the whole rest of the program, that means that error is going to continue. So you just got to be careful when you're copying and pasting. Like here, I'm adding too many addition signs, but I don't really care. I'm just going to quickly backspace. So I'm adding these quotes hoping that it will space out properly. Now it does assemble and print out the string, but I still don't have spaces where I wanted them to. Actually, there is a couple where it's working, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And hopefully whoever at this point has realized it. I forgot to actually put a space in the quotes. See, the quotes by themselves won't actually do anything. You actually have to put inside the quotes string data. Right now it's just empty string data. So right now I'm basically going back to the strings that the variables are holding and adding spaces. But what I could have done is just put a space in between quotes, and this is where I figured it out. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then I'm going to double check my work to see if it's formatted correctly or if I have too many spaces now. So it's legible now, but I do have too many spaces. So I'm going to go back through and see what I did. Adjust the spacing. And the nice thing about Playgrounds is it updates after every single change, so you can quickly see. Most IDEs, like currently I'm working in Visual Studios for C#, and you'd have to run it every single time. Excuse me. To get it to display. But yeah, I've got it to a point where I'm happy with it. Or maybe not. Oh, okay, yeah, there's a space near the period that I'm trying to get rid of. And I think I can't quite figure it out. It might be fine. It might just been me perceiving it as being too spaced out, but it works. So I'm gonna do a dad joke now from a site that I got from. Like I said, the places I got the strings from are listed in that note page, and they were highlighted in yellow. And then I would just in each program do a comment section and the URL of where you got your strings from, or just create strings yourself. So here I'm setting up again. This time I'm going to use the append operator. So instead of just adding stuff, I'm going to append it. So I'm going to take a string and then just append the additional strings to the end of the original string, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, we'll quickly see really quick. So here's where I was beginning to get a little smarter with how I was going to choose what to exactly replace. So like I could put please choose name with a apostrophe s, but instead I'm just going to I'll leave the apostrophe s in the original string, and I'll just have them choose a name, and the apostrophe s, as long as I don't delete it, will show up anyway in the print statement. So and again, I'm just using the greater than or less than equal or greater than or less than signs just to quickly help me reference out what's being replaced and what kind of thing I'm replacing. And I also tried to keep the labels to match up with the variables, which is just a good habit. And see, I got confused on this part. I was like, what type of word is wrong? Is it just an adjective? Is it a noun? So I'm going to call it a noun. I might be wrong on that. I'm a computer guy, though. I've done all my English. I haven't had to take an English class in a while, so. So I'm trying to figure out how many words I should replace. How many is too many, basically. And then I'm going to declare my variables. No, I do like how Playgrounds runs everything after every single change, so it's going to always try to run what you've just written. It can get kind of annoying because it will display errors as you're writing and throw you off if you don't remember that. Yeah, it's just because you haven't finished typing what you're typing. Now, if you notice that sometimes the numbers are turning blue, it's because I'm putting a space after the name of the variable, or constant in this case, and it's basically seeing the space and the number, and it's assuming that I'm trying to declare a constant that's an integer. That's why I keep going back and fixing it, but that's what that blue, or the number turning blue, means, is it's recognizing it as an integer. And yes, I keep using the minus sign instead of the equal sign. I have to keep going back and fixing it. So at this point, I'm just trying to decide if I should do more, if that's enough. Now, what I mean by string variables is just variables dedicated to the actual strings themselves. So I'm just going to do string 1, or maybe not. Var, yep, okay, because I was forgetting var, so I need to go back and fix that. So var string 1 equals, and similar to how I broke it up last time, we're going to do the same thing. See, it's displaying that error. I don't know why. I think if I would have just kept going, that would have been fine, but it was just bothering me. There's pros and cons to work with an IDE. It's always going to be better than just working in Notepad, but can't have it perfect. So right now it's freaking out because I hadn't put a quote, or I had not put a quotes in front of it yet, and so it's. And then there's still something else that it's not liking. So one thing in Swift, you have to have consistent white space on both sides of the equal sign. If you don't, then it's going to tell you that's not cool. So I fixed that. Okay. And basically I'm still just breaking down the string into separate parts, kind of basically just chopping it up into separate strings. And this time I remember to make sure I put spaces inside the actual string data so that the computer knows that it needs to put a space. And I literally created a string just to house that end period. So why not? Gotta go all the way. So append means basically attach it at the end. So when we use the append operator, it doesn't insert the new or the additional string at the beginning. It always inserts it at the end. And now it's gonna freak out because I always get confused which side the plus sign goes on. But I finally figured it out. It's plus then equals. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to append every single string I've created with what word needs to be, or basically the variable I've created at the beginning that is replacing a word. And I'm going to need to append it to the corresponding string. Now, there was a simpler way to do this. I just wanted to use the append operator because I don't use it, or at least I haven't used it too often. So I wanted to just get in the habit of typing it the correct way, which is always a good thing. Now, autofill is super nice, but sometimes you got to be careful that you're not accidentally autofilling to a variable you've already used that you didn't mean to use. And then I believe, so I need one, no, the string 6 will just be its own string. It doesn't need anything added to it. So I'm going to do a comment to separate out the combined string. So now I'm going to do new string. Always got to remember the var equal, and then I'm going to do string. And I can't spell apparently tonight. And it's going to yell at me because I forgot I put a space accidentally. And it's yelling about something, and then it just goes away. It happens a lot in playgrounds. So now I have the new string, and I can just print new string, and it should show up nice and pretty. Let me make sure the formatting's right. So I'm missing a space after placeholder, and then there's a will. So I go there. I'm trying to find the corresponding. Yep, just need a space there. And I got too much of a space there. But at this point, I'm just going to basically replace the variables, which at this point, you would have somebody else play the game for you. And first, before I change anything, I'm going to designate what I want each variable to be named as to give the user some clarification and any rules I want them to follow. it's always good to give them an example. Again, you don't have to do this. It's stuff I highly recommend, though. Comments never hurt. The computer literally ignores them. The only time a comment could ever hurt is if you accidentally commented your program. It wouldn't run, but you could easily just remove the comments at that point. So comments are always a good thing. Think of it like if you were like halfway through building a crib, you want to leave some notes for the person that's going to finish it for you. So, like what you've done already and what's, why you did what you did, so that they know how to finish it. It's the same thing with programming. Most of the time you're going to have multiple programmers on a single program, and you always want to make sure your comments are efficient, precise, and clear, so that when they come after you to go work on something, they understood what you did, and that way they can make sure that what they're doing is in line with what you were doing. So I'm basically just doing comments to explain what kind of names I want for the first two variables. The placeholder for the noun 1 and 2, I want to make sure they're putting a direction, so northwest, southeast, up, down, etc., something like that. And then the last one, I want it to be a vegetable or fruit, because I knew that if they follow these guidelines, the string will come out to something at least that's recognizable as a sentence. So yeah, we all know Tyler's law. Anything that can go up will go down. But have you heard of Brian's law? It's thinly sliced watermelon. It doesn't even make any sense, but it definitely does sound like a dad joke. The original joke is, we all know about Murphy's law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. But have you heard about Cole's law? It's thinly sliced cabbage. Now we're going to make another game. And these last two, I just choose any method I want, because we've kind of gone through the main three methods you could go through with this. And again, I'm going to put my name and the date. And I'm going to try to be clear with my comments, so I'm going to be using any method. And I did call it Madlib 4. I guess this was kind of a Madlib. I might have changed my mind to question. Yeah, I think I do questions and answers on this one. Yeah. And I was struggling a little bit with the formatting on this one, so I do go back and change a few things to make it make more sense as an actual game/program. But what I was trying to come up with is basically almost like puzzle pieces at this point, like build using the variables I've already declared and the kind of general setup, make a question and an answer using what I've created already. So trying to just keep it super basic. Basically, the whole goal of this playground really is just to practice using what you know about variables and constants, and what you know about strings and how you can manipulate strings. And again, just to repeat, I guess, at this point, for each thing, make your own game. Just use mine as an example or kind of a idea to springboard off of. You don't follow it one to one. It's just basically like, here's what I did as I went through the program. And just basically, it's just to give you an idea how to get started. And if you get stuck, you can always reference my video to see what I did and if I encountered the same issues and etc. Stuff like that. So you see, I basically I went to start commenting saying put a name of an action, and then I realized what would be more concise than that. I could just put comment action. They already know they're supposed to replace it with something, and I'm just giving them small hints of what they should use. So I don't need, as basically in programming, you want to be efficient and you want to optimize. So if you can say something in less words, try to do that, because it will save you in the long run. So this is where I kind of realized, well, actually after this section is kind of where I realized I messed up and I should have kind of thought through what I was trying to do. But basically I have these variables, question 1 and 2, and then these answer variables. But then I'm like, well, I need to create the actual question. So I create new variables that are called question, which I need to rename. So basically, I set up the whole program. It works and everything, but I had to go back and kind of just readjust my formatting and syntax to make sure that the user wouldn't have been confused, and I wasn't confused at what I was doing. So. Alrighty, so let's see here. We're still on game 4. And basically, still just trying to come up with how I wanted to do this. And that's kind of the struggle sometimes, is you kind of have an idea in your mind and you can kind of see it in your mind, but it can be hard sometimes to translate that into an actual thing, because in my mind it was simple. It's just a question and answer. You build a question, you answer it. But then I was like, wait, how do I actually get this on paper, so to speak, and in a working order? So basically, at this point, I've kind of decided, like, well, I want to have multiple kind of locations, or kind of like identifiers of where in the room. So like left, the, in the, behind the, on top of, under the. So as you notice, I'm doing variables similar, or a similar naming scheme between the variables. I just put an underscore to identify, that they're different. But I'm going to go back and change them because I wasn't happy with how they looked, and it would have been confusing to the user. Why are these named question 1 and 2? Why are these also named question 1 and 2, but just with an underscore as the difference? And like I've said previously, you guys can feel free to skip ahead if you want to just quickly browse what I did for this one and then skip on to the next one. No offense taken whatsoever. I know it's kind of a longer video, but I really wanted to take my time to make sure I was thorough, and I went slow enough that anybody could easily keep along. The nice thing about today's day and age, you can actually set the play speed most of the time, and you could speed it up if you wanted. I'm going back and double checking that I got spaces right now in the right spots to make sure the formatting is correct. And what I did in this time is basically I just put spaces before and after everything. And then that way I can always come back and adjust, but that would give me a good idea of what more than likely everything will be spaced out properly. I might just have to fine tune it after I get it to print. So this one I'm going to basically do a concatenation, and instead of creating a new string, I'm simply going to do print this variable plus this variable plus this variable, if that makes sense. Now, this is I've already mentioned this multiple times during this section, but like I said, I redo several things about this program specifically towards the latter half of it, which is totally fine. Sometimes you just realize that you need to go back and change half of the stuff you've already done, but it's going to make everything work out in the long run a lot more efficiently, and sometimes it happens. Now, can somebody identify what I did wrong in this print statement at this point? If you can, props, because it took me a second too. There is a red underline beneath the P. Now remember, Swift is case sensitive, so if something is upper or lowercase can be the difference between the computer recognizing it as a keyword or recognizing it as something else. And the print, I had to capitalize P, so the computer is like, "What are you trying to do here? That's not how print works." So I've developed basically the question, and it's already kind of letting me know how it's going to turn out using the placeholder text. So I'm happy with that so far. Now this time I wanted to add a comma. So instead of just creating a variable with a comma, I just quickly did quotes and then a comma, quotes, or end quote plus another plus, and then a plus sign. And then I'm going to fill out the rest of the variables. So basically, the variables up top are things that the person are going to actually name themselves, while the variables under question are kind of predetermined variables that they can use to create a question and answer. So at this point, I was thinking, well, I can just have them ask the question and then kind of have them answer the question by just doing like answer 1 to question 1, comma, then answer 2 to question 2. At this point, the question is framed as like, who did it, how did they do it, where did they do it, kind of thing. And so I was going to have the answer just be answer 1, comma, answer 2, comma, answer 3, and it would be basically, Tyler did it, he did it here, and this is how he did it. But then I decided I didn't quite like that, so I decided to kind of change everything. And in programming, that's a very common thing. Sometimes you're just gonna do all this work and realize, it's not working out. So it's better to change it now than just try to push forward. So this is the kind of the point where I realized like I didn't quite think this through all the way, and I need to reevaluate how I'm gonna end up doing this. And then I realized, wait, it's a question. There has to be a question mark. So I added a question mark at the beginning or the end of the question. And I was like, an action. But it's like, does that really make sense? Like, who left in the how? Tyler did, placeholder. And now it's going to be Tyler did the milk. So like who left the in the how. And it wasn't a very satisfying question and answer at this point. So I had to kind of reevaluate. So at this point I think I'm trying to decide if I should just get rid of it all and start from scratch. So and yep, this is the point where I start changing everything. So I want question 2 to actually be like the place, like where did it happen? And I'm going to choose a living room. So now we have who left the in the living room. And so I'm like, well, obviously something's missing. What was left, right? And I'm going to do basically string concatenation again, and I'm going to append, or not append, well, technically, I could have used the append operator, but basically I'm just going to say, well, question underscore 0 now equals left the plus answer 3. So that way when they, whatever they decide they want the item to be, when they choose question 0 as left the, it will automatically fill for them. But then I got confused at what I had done because it was started saying the milk, and it took me a while to realize what I had done. I was trying to be smart, but sometimes being smart doesn't always work out. Well, I mean, it worked out in the end, but it confused me for a second. So that's where I realized, oh, the I already have left the, and it would be easier if the answer was actually just the item, not the milk, but just milk. That way the other parts of the can fill in the rest of the sentence. So now I got who left the milk in the living room, and then I have answer Tyler left the milk, and then milk on top of living room. So I also have milk in there twice. I have to figure out where is milk getting duplicated. And I think it's because I realized that question 0 actually includes answer 3, so I put it twice technically. And then I realized, well, if I'm kind of like, am I creating a game or if I'm creating a half-finished project at this point? So this is where I enter a comment. I'm going to kind of explain how this works. I'm going to be like, I need to clearly define for the user how this works. And what I came up with is create a question and answer using the following variables and your knowledge of the constants and strings, or basically your knowledge of Swift at this point, and you create a question and answer using, and you can make it your own thing. But this is key right here. This is the difference between my project being half finished, or basically not a fully developed program, to, well, now it's an interactive program that they get to manipulate, and they can use their programming skills to create a question and answer. So it's all about how you frame everything, and it's all about how you indicate to the user what they're supposed to be doing. And at this point, I decided I didn't like the name of my variables because they weren't clear. They were confusing. And there's nothing worse than a user being confused. A good example of that is the doors, right? If doors have the same type of handle on both the front and the inside, the user will be confused if it's a push or a pull, unless you clearly indicate, right? So that's why when we're designing stuff, we want to be very clear, not just that it looks cool, but like, what is the assumption from the user when they look at this? What are they going to automatically assume that they're looking at, and what they're supposed to do? We don't want the situation where they look at the door handle and think it's a pull when it's really a push. That isn't good for anybody. So I renamed all my variables, and then I had to go back to my print statements to rename those to match up with the variables I'm calling. Otherwise, when I print it, it wouldn't be able to find the variables I had indicated. Now, I started being like, well, you know what? If they're going to create sentences, they should have a variable dedicated for the question mark and the period, because we know for sure there's going to be a question and an answer. So we know we need at least one question mark, and also we need a period for the answer. But if you can kind of see, if somebody would come up with here, they can change the question and the answers, and then if they're knowledgeable, they can go to where and did what I did plus answer 3, and then when they print it, they don't have to do multiple variables, or that saves them one variable. Now we got who left the milk in the living room, and now it says Tyler left the milk in the living room. So now we have a question of who left the milk in the living room, and now we have an answer of who did it. And it's actually a functional sentence. And now what I'm doing is I'm just going back and separating the variables just a little bit. So now we have variables, punctuation, and we have where. And I think I'm gonna do question and answer. Actually, I flip-flopped those. Top one's supposed to be question, and the second one is supposed to be answer. And then I separated the print statements, ask the question, and answer the question. Let's see if I catch me being the comments. I might not. That's a faux pas on my part. Do I catch it? I might not catch it, unfortunately. Cool. So let's go to the final one. And this one I'm building, it's going to be any method again. And we are going to create a riddle. So riddle me. I'm always a fan of riddles. I'm usually always stumped. But they're fun anyway. Honestly, The Hobbit, the first part one, Hobbit, it's probably one of my favorite scenes is where Gollum is asking Bilbo riddles for him to show the way out, and that was one of my favorite scenes of that movie. So these last two are a little bit more interactive in terms of like put more on the user to kind of create the program, given more of just the building blocks. So I'm going to do a comment, creating riddles, kind of like, hey, this is what we're doing. Comment for places, basically the building blocks of the riddle, items, actions, answers. Because if we create a riddle, there has to be an answer. You can't have a riddle that doesn't have an answer. That's against the rules of the riddles. Because that would be cheating. And then I created a comment to test the riddle and kind of basically, it's the same thing I did with the strings from the earlier games. Is like, let me create a comment where I can kind of just display the statement or the riddle that I want, and then go from there and try to figure out what exactly I wanted replaced. Whoops, what's going on here? So let's see here, where am I at? So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what kind of riddle I want, what the riddle's gonna be, how hard I want it to be, etc. So test riddle is, what does everyone do but no one can repeat while awake? And points to anybody that can figure it out right now. Kind of vague. 1, 2, 3. Sleeping. Everyone does it, but nobody can do it or no one can repeat it while awake. So like, what's something everybody does but can't repeat while awake? And you can't fall asleep while you're awake, or you can't sleep while you're awake. Now I'm going to create variables for everything under, basically places where one, item 1. but I won't necessarily use one because it's supposed to be set up so that somebody can come in and create their own riddle. This is the riddle I want to make, and that's why I did the test riddle so that I could figure out, so I could organize my thoughts and figure out what variables I needed and how I'd like them to be presented, and what would be the best way to do that in a way that somebody could follow me and create a different riddle, but use the kind of same format I was using. Now, I have some inconsistencies with my code. So some things I'm naming like the name of the thing and then a 1 at the end. Now, I go back and forth on this because technically the way the code works is the first thing in a list is 0, and then the next thing is 1. 0 is the first placeholder, basically. So sometimes I treat that as being unsaid. So like, for example, I say like let who equal placeholder. So in my brain, that means let who, which is really who 0, and then I could do who 1, and then sometimes I specify like where 1. I need to be more consistent about that. But that's just something I need to work on. It's not like the biggest deal, but it's just something to be more consistent about, and then that helps in the long run. And then quick pop quiz, what does let mean when I'm declaring? What does that signify to the computer? 1, 2, 3, and the answer is constant. Means that do not change this value. This value cannot be changed once I've assigned it to this box. Basically, this box can't hold any other value except this one. Now I can go back and change the actual statement where it declares it, but later in the program, if I wanted to say, like, for example, if I've already declared answer 1 equals placeholder, and then later in the program I say answer 2 or answer 1 now equals so and so, it will throw an error and say you can't do that. You've declared this as something that doesn't change. Now, a couple words you might come across is mutable and immutable. So mutable just means you can think of it as like mutation, like mutate. So if something's mutable, you can change it. If something's immutable, you can't change it. It's unchangeable. And now basically I've kind of created the riddle that I wanted. And this time I didn't use an item, an action. So I was like, I need everyone, anywhere, and I need repeat, and I need sleep as the answer. So now I'm going to print this out as and now I'm going to use string interpolation. Now, the beauty of this is literally I could just leave the program after I'm done writing this print statement and the print answer, and somebody could come back and just change what those constants actually mean before running it, and then we'd have a completely different riddle. It might not make sense, but we'd have a completely different riddle. So, yes, okay, I remember this part now. So I didn't use items, so for this specific riddle, I thought frequency would help the riddle in terms of understandability. Because I wanted, like, the thing about a good riddle is, like, if vagueness, but also, like, commonness too, right? So, like, what's something that everybody does every day, anywhere, And it's like, wow, that could be a lot of things, right? That's a wide category. But then the kicker is, but they cannot repeat while awake. And then you're like, okay, wait, what can everybody do? Or what is something that everybody does every day, anywhere, right? But they can't do while awake. It's not the best riddle I've ever created. It's mediocre at best, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Slightly clever, maybe. Slightly witty. And then I had to go back and enter a condition, right? Because awake is a condition, right? You know, if you're asleep, that's or I guess condition slash state could be a describer for that. You know, what state am I in? I'm currently awake. If I'm sleeping, that would be I'm in a sleeping state. Now, if we were kind of a little bit more advanced, what we could have done in this playground is we could have used a random number generator and had everything listed in what we would call an array. An array is literally just basically a thing the computer holds onto in a list, and that's it. And that's it. And basically, what you would do is you would create a function that would generate a random number and then pull the corresponding item in the list that corresponds to that number from the array, and then you could do some crazy stuff with that and create, you know, Mad Libs, but using just a random number generator, kind of like how the ant simulation was using random number generators to determine the path. So, but yeah, and that's pretty much the end of the program, though. Basically, what is something that everyone does anywhere every day but cannot repeat while awake? And that is, let it print sleep. So yeah, that's everything, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Sarah. She will be more than happy to give you my email. And if you ever need help with anything, I'm more than happy to help. But anyways, have a good rest of your night, guys, or day, whatever time it is.